Knowlarity. Thank you. My name is Grishma Nanavati. I'll be hosting the event today with Ashay Doshi, who'll be running the Q&A. Our topic for today is moving back to India, building businesses in emerging markets. But before we get started, I'd like to invite Rekha Koita, who is the head of our Mumbai chapter, to welcome our guest Ambarish and our attendees. Rekha, over to you.
Thank you, Grishma. Thank you, Ambarish, for joining us today and agreeing to be our guest speaker. I think we're all very excited to hear you. And I'd also like to extend my welcome to all those who have taken the time out to attend this webinar. I'm sure you're all going to have a great evening. I think Ambarish has already told us that he's going to be entertaining. So I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful time. I think today is also a special evening because he is a CMU alum, and I think while we have a number of events, an event with a CMU alum is always special for us. And I was just telling him that the topic of moving back to India and starting a business in emerging markets is something close to my heart personally, and I'm sure that's true of many of the people in our audience. I think time and again we see our alums who come back to India and who are, it's everybody's aspiration to start something on their own and to grow it and develop it. And I think to hear from someone who's kind of been there, done that, not once, but twice now. So I think, with Knowlarity as well as Basis Vectors, I think it's going to be an amazing evening. So I don't want to take up much more time. Thank you, Grishma, for being the host and Ashay for helping out. I'll just hand it back to Grishma. You can do the introduction and take it ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rekha. So welcome once again, everyone. I mean, Ambarish, you have a long list of credentials. Even before we hit the Knowlarity stage, you completed your BTech in computer science from IIT Kanpur in 2000. And of course, your MBA from CMU in 2007. You've worked at several companies across the globe, starting with Fraunhofer Institute for Computer Graphics in Germany, followed by a software major EFI in Australia and the US, then Booz Allen Hamilton, which was your summer internship, McKinsey, post your MBA, and then lastly, Microsoft for a few months. Then in 2009, you founded Knowlarity, a pioneer of cloud telephony products for SMEs in emerging markets, which you followed up with in Jan 2019 with Basis Vectors, the software as a service focused venture capital and private equity firm with a $15 million fund. Wow, that's impressive. So thank you so much for taking out the time today to speak to us. A big welcome to you. We're really excited to have you here and learn from your experiences. But before we delve deeper into all these milestones, we would love for you to say a few words of welcome to our audience.
Hello, everybody. Welcome from me. I am currently in New York. It's a sunny day out here, and I know that you guys are joining from various parts of the world, especially India. I think it's the evening there. Hope everybody is safe and taking care of themselves. Very much welcome to what I have to say today.
Great, thank you, Ambarish. Just a quick note about the format for our attendees. I'll be interviewing Ambarish for about 40-45 minutes, though I wish we had more time. And then after which we'll open it up to Q&A. Ambarish has graciously said he has more time available beyond the hour. So if the Q&A session extends a bit, we can definitely tap into his time for maybe a few more minutes after that. So please do type your questions into the Q&A box. Ashay is eagerly awaiting them. So without further ado, I'd like to start with my first question, Ambarish. I mean, you grew up in a business family in Kanpur, but then decided to be the odd man out and pursue academia instead at IIT Kanpur. I believe your goal was to be a scientist. However, that quickly changed during your college years and you made a pivot back to business. Can you walk us through a few important factors that played a part in these early transitions? I mean, your key experiences prior to Knowlarity.
Absolutely. So yeah, I grew up in a typical middle class family in India and come from business family, joint family, big family. You have like uncles and aunts and everybody's kind of living together in Kanpur, and Kanpur is a small town in UP. And nobody in my family whether it's by my mother's side or my father's side, ever done any job. Um, everybody did business, various kind of businesses. My own family was is actually still is in trading of jute bags. My mother's side, the lot of clothing merchants and jewelry, electronics, those kind of things. Um, and I remember there used to be doing a job used to be a little bit of looked down upon, really, in my family. And I more than once I heard this my grandfather used to make this statement. It is a saying in Hindi. It's called Uttam Vidya Madhyam Dhan, Neech Chakri Bhik Nidan, which basically means Uttam Vidya means you go for education. That's the best thing to do. Uh, Madhyam Dhan, which is agriculture and business, it's the middle. Neech Chakri, which is the third one, is you go work for somebody, and the last one is Bhik Nidan, which is money. If you don't have a choice, you basically beg. So literally, this is the way. This is the way I was told. Why you should do business, which is number two, and rather than go to for number three. And I said, why not I go for number one, Uttam Vidya? So this is the reason for me to get excited about education. Also, I think I was very intellectually inclined. Um, I love maths and physics. Growing up, I love reading and I love asking questions. And to me, business, the way we did business in my family, it looked very, it was commercial, but it meant the impact of the business was very limited to the family. You just basically taking care of the family and yourself with money. And I just had somewhat bigger aspirations. While I was growing up, I also was deeply impacted by, what was happening in Kanpur. So the Kanpur used to be considered, there used to be term used for Kanpur city was Manchester of East, because of a lot of very high quality fabric mills in Kanpur. There used to be a famous fabric mill called Lal Imli Mill. And I think around 1970s or so, it got nationalized. And I, growing up, saw the downfall of Lal Imli Mill, where the production quality went down, and a lot of other industries kind of started evolving. I used to, in my mohalla, in my locality, I would watch, like, a lot of people just get up in the morning and have their cup of coffee and have a cup of chai and newspaper, and just sit there on these verandas and not do anything. And I would ask my family, who are these people? And I would be told that they work in Lal Imli Mill. Basically, they never worked. I grew up watching them not working, and the reason later I learned was that the government figured out, once it was nationalized, and the management became very bad. The government figured out that it was cheaper to just pay people their salaries and not have them work than run the mill and have a bigger losses. So that was a level of mismanagement from where it was one of the most efficient mills. So kind of I think I grew up watching the impact of socialism, or a version of socialism, at least, play out in front of my eyes. And I think that made me very that made me very capitalist inclined kind of person. So I mean, this is how I grew up. Given my interest in physics and maths, the things that everybody does, the one choice that everybody has in India is just to go become a doctor or engineer. So with that thought, I took a JEE exam, and ended up getting selected in JEE, and had a computer science, took a computer science department. I never touched computer before also, but if you have a certain rank, so my rank was like sub 100, less than 100 rank in JEE, and if you have very high quality rank, you can get computer science, and that's the reason I took computer science. I ended up going to computer science department in IIT Kanpur. Studied there for 4 years, and amazing experiences in IIT Kanpur. I had idea to become to go and do PhD and become a scientist. And with that idea, I kind of just was coming out. IIT, I applied for PhD programs, and it worked out as well, quite well. um, but I think the there was so I did in IIT. While I was going through the BTech program, I also did kind of some research work. And I think the reason I kind of, when I was graduating, I decided not to take up a PhD program and instead take a job. I remember I did some research work, and it was pretty usable, very, very usable thing. But once I did the research, it was kind of thrown away. There was no application of that. And I later learned that most of the research, basically people just do write papers, and then it just kind of sits there somewhere, right? And there's no direct applicability of the research. So while I was quite excited about academia in IIT, slowly my interest kind of went down. I would look outside IIT Kanpur, and you're doing the most cutting edge research inside the campus, and outside you are the rickshaw. The people carrying water on their heads. Everything is super low tech, and then you basically doing research is super high tech. And what I think I felt very intellectually dishonest about was you're doing very high level research, but there's no application, right in front of you, right? You're not applying it. You're just basically doing research. You're just kind of going somewhere. And I think that changed my mind a little bit. And I say, what? Maybe commercial application of technology, that is more exciting for me. I am a technologist. I'm an engineer. But how do I want to see whatever I do, I want to see that applied, right? And with that thought, I ended up taking a job in US. Everybody went to US at the time. So landed up in Silicon Valley, worked there. Actually, I ended up going to Germany first and did some research work. Then Australia, which was same company which had hired me for US, and ended up going to US afterward. And there was like a tick mark, you want to see the Silicon Valley, which you have heard so much about. And yeah, it was an eye-opening experience for me. 3 years, to see how the world worked, the amount of automation and technology the countries have in the daily life. Right. It was incredible experience, those 3 years, and then of course this post at CMU. But the Silicon Valley was very exciting. People do not know that actually in 2003 I was in Silicon Valley. 2001 and 2003 I was in Silicon Valley. In 2003 I decided to quit and come back to India to start my first company, actually, right. Which failed. Not two. This is the third pieces sector I started. So I went through the whole experience of first coming back to India in 2003 and try to start a company, and there was no ecosystem, and good idea but didn't work, and went back again for MBA in CMU, and post at McKinsey, and after that again, another entrepreneurial venture of Knowlarity.
Actually, that's what I in 2009 after McKinsey, when you're a consultant with Microsoft in Seattle, you decided to come back and start Knowlarity. Why leave a very lucrative, a very chalked out growth trajectory in the US, right? To launch a startup in India and in the telephony industry, which other companies did not want to enter due to the voice over IP issues. So could you maybe walk us through why that decision was made to come back?
I mean, there are multiple reasons. I think the number one was, so kind of I'll walk you through my thinking. So in McKinsey, we used to use a product called eFax. it's a fax to email product, and this company also has a product called eVoice, which is IVR product, and which is a very similar product to Knowlarity in US market. And I, out of curiosity, once I kind of looked at the income statement, they're public traded company, and I saw that the company is it's a commodity product. eFax and eVoice are somewhat commodity product, but they're very high growth, very high EBITDA. Almost 20 at the time. It used to be like 30% EBITDA also. And I was surprised as a student of business and strategy. How come a commodity product has such a high EBITDA? It should be low. They should have price competition, which would bring down the prices. And I saw that their prices actually were higher than their competitors. And when I dug a little bit deeper, you basically figure out that once people take a telephone number, they don't want to change it. So if you take a business phone number, you just because somebody else, you're paying $15 per month, somebody comes and says, I'll give you 12, you have to change the numbers, and you have to print it on the business card and website. You don't want to do it, so you stick with it. Mm-hmm. So this is stickiness associated with tools which are which have with the cost of transition is very low. So you basically increase the prices, keep the price increase, and that's how the business model works. And I just absolutely love that. I said, this is very good business model. When I looked at India didn't have that product. Also, India had just gone through a telecom revolution where everybody had cell phones, and there's this whole, at least in McKinsey, we studied something called the idea of derivative markets. So once you have like one market come, things don't really stop there. That disruption leads to more disruption. So, for example, during the Second World War, there were a lot of there was a lot of research done on tanks, right, which actually improves the quality of the engines that you can make. And that research later, after the Second World War, went into cars, and you could make better cars because there was so much research done on tanks and tank engines. And when you have high quality cars, those cars can go farther distance without braking, right? Which basically means that you can live in suburbs and work in the downtown. So think about the Second World War led to people living in suburbs. Take example of India. The geo, the disruption that all of us are going through. Geo lead to Misho, or WhatsApp voice calls, or telemedicine. All those things will are the disruption. So there's a second order disruption when the first order things happen in any country. And my thesis was that if you give all the consumers phones in their hands, they are going to call business. Earlier, they used to not call business because how would you call? I mean, how would you reach out to them? You can't walk to them. There's no way to contact. You are not going to send postcards. But if you give them phone, they're going to call business. So consumer to business communication will go up. And then businesses will have so many phone calls that they will need a proper enterprise system to manage those phone calls. So the enterprise telephony is about to be born. That was my high level thesis. And I saw in US, it was incredibly profitable business. The only problem which was missing in India was that India didn't allow voice over IP. But I knew, I as a computer science graduate, I had interest in distributed system and all those things. So we made the system. I invented the technology. It's called PSTN cloud telephony, where calls can get telephone calls can get routed on the copper wire itself rather than going on voice over IP, and that way they're compliant with the regulations in India and Middle East and South Asia and all this market. So I mean, it was perfect situation of opportunity. You're basically copying, pasting an idea, so you're not taking a market risk. You're not taking the product risk. You're taking execution risk, which is much lower risk. And the story's already been kind of done once. And I shamelessly, I told my angel investors and my VCs later that, I'm copying from Ring Central and eVoice. But, there's this part missing in India, which is the technology. So I mean, I invented the technology, but everything else is a copy. And what I always believe is that innovation is overrated. You should avoid innovation. You should only innovate when there's absolutely a need. You should minimize the amount of innovation you have to do to create a technology to bring it to the focus should be to bring the fruits of the technology to the masses. And when you try to bring fruits of the fruits of the technology to the masses, you want less number of moving parts, which is you want to innovate as little as possible. And in this case, I innovated as little as possible, which was the technology. And it still ended up not being a very easy job to kind of bring this technology to India, but ended up being very, very successful. And it worked out quite well.
Great. So, I mean, you did build a very robust platform in countries where voice over IP were not allowed. I mean, you achieved your first sale even before the company was incorporated. You built a product within, I think it was 72 hours, and you grew the venture like 60x in 6 years. So, you talk about execution risk was one of the larger risks that you had. So can you maybe walk us through that? What strategies did you execute, did you implement that you felt helped you successfully enter this emerging market and really have a successful startup?
I would say at every stage, the minimization of the risk. I what I call that buying insurance for every risk, and trying to increase the size of the pie. So, I mean, the very first thing, I started the company with the co-founder of mine. His name is Ballo Pandey, who I knew since college, and I had a lot of respect for. He was already in India, and my first experience coming to India and trying to start a company was just very basic problems, finding an office, first few employees, initial investors, all those things. I think the first thing that I did was partner with somebody who was kind of already doing something in India, right? So it kind of took away all these kind of basic problems that that I faced the first time. I raised capital. The first time around, I had not raised capital. So this time, I raised capital even before coming back to India. I built up. I third thing that I ended up doing was I checked whether this thesis worked by trying to sell this product even before the product was built. So I remember, calling up roughly 13 people that I found on LinkedIn, and out of that, and these 13 people, I would tell them this product. The great thing about this product, the cloud telephony product, was that it was almost 1/10 the cost that it would take to build up a regular system. Typically, people bought like boxes or servers and to deploy this kind of system. And out of 13, 11 wanted it. And they said, okay, well, why don't you come and sell it? We'll use it. And that was a very good, I would say, market research, beyond going market research, just kind of selling to see, everything work or not, and then I ended up building it up. So I think a lot of people make a mistake when they build up a product in isolation and go out and sell. This time I sold first and built it up later, partnering up with somebody who kind of already was there, raising capital so you don't feel distressed when you're coming in. I think the opportunity was copy paste, and it was what I call a macro opportunity. So the enterprise telephony in the Indian market was not going to go away; it was going to stay. Given in US, it was already there for like 11, 15 years, right? So there was like a little bit of a copy paste of the idea and the experience of the US here. The initial set of team, you have to be very careful. So that was built very, 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 very carefully. I remember hiring the first engineer, and I would kind of call up people on Naukri.com, and I remember I talked with roughly 110 engineers before I hired the first one, and that person ended up hiring more people. So I think building up the initial team, this initial journey was loads of fun. We worked 7 days a week. The engineers slept in the office. That kind of experience. It was very exciting.
Absolutely. And you talk about your because you came back and you had your startup. You came back from the US in 2004, and you had your first startup, Eventica. And it seemed,
Inventica.
yeah, even though it didn't go as planned, I think there was a lot of learning from it, which you had the second time you executed. Like you were saying, you were minimizing risk, making sure you had the right team, you tested your product. But what more macro challenges did you find when you came to, when starting a company in India? Could you talk about some of those larger scale challenges you faced?
I mean, I think anybody who's moving from US to India, there are a lot of challenges. Um, the quality of life takes a hit. Um, I didn't tell my family that I'm starting this, but I know that the families end up being very important part of these decisions. Making sure that you have supportive family who's willing to go along with this with you, because it is going to be a tough journey. My thesis of going from US back to India was absolutely commercial, because I thought that there was this whole idea that you can copy paste this idea from US to India. But nobody does that. You basically, if you were wrong, everybody will look at you and say, how idiot, what an idiot. I think having a lot of introspection to do exactly what you feel like, and willing to look like an idiot later, taking the risk of looking like a massive idiot later. I think you have to weigh that risk against the benefit of having comfort that actually ended up doing what you wanted to do. So I think that you have to deliberate a lot. You kind of have to be sure about yourself, and you have to be comfortable about yourself, that you're willing to have that risk. Another thing that had played out for me was US was going through at that time a recession. And post McKinsey, my actual interest was to move into private equity, and private equity market was not doing very well. So what little bit helped me was US is going through a recession. If I fail in trying to launch something like this, I can come back with operating experience, and then maybe move to private equity. And anyway, there's not going to be a lot of exciting stuff happen in US for the next 1 or 2 years, while in India was going through some crazy growth at that time. Telecom was growing 100% year on year, and all the boards were all the boards were SSA, like the lifting all the tide was lifting all the boards. So I thought this was the right geography to be for next 2-3 years, even though it sounded very unconventional. And anybody else would look at it and say, how idiotic, why did you not move from New York to San Francisco? To me, logically, it made kind of loads of sense, and it to me low risk. And then you partner with a friend who for a long period of time. You build a product where you actually charge customer right in the beginning, so you can tell if they're not willing to pay, that means product is not needed, and you will fail. The product is not. You'll get to know very quickly. Raising capital right in the beginning, so you're not spending your own money. In my first venture, I had $40,000. I spent $39,000, right? So I had like $800 left in my pocket. So this time I raised like roughly $200,000 from friends and family. So I had money. So kind of all of those things I ended up doing. I think another thing that played out in my mind very aggressively. I think if you have very nice plan B, your plan A will not work. So my first startup, I remember coming back to India, and I was 24, 25-year-old, and it was kind of adventure for me. Come back to India, we'll cool stuff, we'll start a company, and you build up. I was a technology guy, so I built up the product very quickly, and I tried to sell. It was like something similar to housing.com. It created apartment search on internet product, and trying to meet brokers, real estate brokers in Bangalore, and trying to communicate with them in English or Hindi, and they spoken. It was crazy experience.
Right.
But it was okay, because for me it was, I was considering like going for an MBA program, and I said, no, like, why don't we try a startup? It doesn't work, then I'll go for MBA. And that was always in the back of my mind, that it doesn't work, I'm going for MBA. And plan B was so good that we just within 8 months it failed. 9 months it failed, and then we started preparing for GMAT, and then went back. This time around, is when I started Knowlarity. I was 31-year-old, and I knew that this was now or never. It's on one end you're looking at a white picket fence, 2 cars, suburb house, right? That life, right? And then all the excitement of building and doing something great in life was like, just the to me, it looked to me like, I have talked about a lot in my life, like about something exciting, and that this is it, this is the last chance. After that, it's going to be very stable life, which is for many people not be a bad thing, but to me it looked scary at the time. So I was desperate. So I think desperation is very important. That your plan A has to be the plan A, not plan B. So I think all those things in my mind played out, and this is the reason this time around I was so trying to be so safe. Copying something which was working, partnering up with somebody who I worked with before, who had some experience raising capital, selling first before building a product, raising loads of capital afterward, hiring many people, so that if one product fails, you can do second product. I was buying insurance, what I call, I was buying insurance all the time. And fortunately it worked. It's incredibly risky, but it ended up working.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great. It's great to hear, right? If you have a very good plan B, then plan A won't work. And it's amazing also that, second time round, even though it was a larger risk in a sense, because you were leaving a very successful and lucrative, trajectory back, you were taking a chance here, but you took a lot of precautions and, very systematic steps to mitigate the risk as much as possible. So, and it's good that obviously it panned out, which was great. But another thing, if I could ask you, another topic we hear a lot of our alums talk about is the work culture in India. People who come back often struggle with issues related to that. How was your experience? I mean, obviously initially you had a very small team of 70 people, so that in itself is probably very very defining, very hard to get the core team in place. But then even as you grew Knowlarity, how did you help get recruit a robust team of people?
I think the work culture is very different for sure. I worked, I would say, harder in McKinsey than I would say many times, on an average, at least, in Knowlarity. These people on time, you give some work to people in US, it gets done. In India, it's kind of intent, there's the intent to work rather than the completing the work. So I think in India, the work culture is still developing. The work practices are still developing, and being on time, committing and finishing, creating a tight plan, all those things are very, India is an easygoing work culture. By the same time, India is very young. So once people feel aligned with you, there's no stopping, they'll go very far, very flexible. So I think India, you have to, if you're a manager who basically just because you're working here, you're supposed to finish it, it will not get done. But if you're a leader, if you can inspire, if you can make people part of the whole mission, the things move very fast, and things get done, and everybody have loads of fun, loads of fun. I had never managed anyone before I started Knowlarity. I have advised as a management consultant, the CEOs on strategy, but I actually had never managed anyone. And that's a terrible thing, when you're trying to start a company, because you do not know how to manage. There's something called managing teams, right? And it's a real skill, and it's very important. And I was terrible at it, because I was more of a strategy person. And I learned, and I early employees, whenever I meet them, I apologize to them because I felt that you were guinea pigs, and I did terrible experiments on you guys because I did not know anything better. And but I learned by experimentation, and trying various things, and I think towards the last years, I'd say 2016, 17, 18, incredible experience. You see a whole bunch of pictures there, in my background, many of those pictures of coming from 16, 17, 18, which I'm very proud of. Just the learnings that I have had in the company, managing people. I think work culture is very different. India is young. I think India is very entrepreneurial. You don't in US, in Germany, you can tell people that do this because you're expected to do this. In India, you have to explain to them why. And it's more of a sports, I feel, that in India, than anything else. People are very capable. People are willing to work long hours. People work on the weekends. If they feel excited, they feel connected with you. You have to be flexible as well. In India, this commute is a big problem, right? In US, commute is easy. Other places it's easy. In India, you realize that when people go from Noida to Gurgaon, it's 1.5 hours sitting in the car. So you just have to be, you have to feel for them, and you have to inspire them, and they need to feel for you, almost like a friend, right? And that is where you get the best outcome, and everybody feels great about whatever they're doing, versus in US and in, for example, Germany, when I worked, it's a professional life and personal life, right? And in professional life, you tell them somebody, and so benefits, the pros and cons of the work culture being different in India. But I would say, and I work in many other places as well. I work in Philippines, I've lived in Thailand, I will work in Singapore. I loved working in India and with the Indian teams, because it's just, you can do game changing stuff.
That's great to hear, and it's very true, right? I mean, managing and inspiring, it's very important to inspire so that you get that loyalty. They're part of the vision and they help the company grow. Absolutely. Amrish, I when I was looking at reading some of your articles, I found a very interesting article of yours that you penned in January of 2020, before the pandemic, where you spoke about remote work being the future, and the talent crowd. You said, how smartphones and computers have unlocked us from our offices. Obviously, this pandemic has accelerated the timeline. But what do you think? If you can work from anywhere, what does that mean for India?
I mean, it's great. It's a great. And I think it's interesting that you read that article. This was even before pandemic. I wrote that article, and I think people underestimate the impact of this currently. And I'll write another article, just kind of expanding on this. But not India, everything. What I actually am talking about in that article is the why the whole idea of work in society as we know it is going to change. I mean, it's basically just summarizing, for the folks who are listening very quickly. We were cavemen and cavewomen, right? At one point of time where we just roamed around the jungles and ate and killed and ate and picked and ate, right? And then we got domesticated by wheat, where we got tempted by just picking up some seeds and putting it on the ground and just waiting for it to grow, right? And we became lazy and we had to sit there. And that's agriculture, right? And the agriculture led to society because you can't do agriculture without forming teams, and everybody's sitting, and the villages form, and then the society form, and then the the institutions start forming, right, for collaboration. And the same thing continued in industrial economy, where the factory replaced the farm. But knowledge economy, where you can work from anywhere, is actually the first time in last thousands of years since agriculture started, almost 12,000 years. So we can work from anywhere. And what we only talk about currently is the first order impact of work from anywhere, which is work from home, work from office. You don't realize the second, third order impact, which is the whole idea of various institutions that we have come to just accept will fall apart because they were all dependent on people sticking in one place. So, for example, country, loyalty to the country. What is country? Country is because you're tied to one land, you build affinity to the people who are living in the same land. And then you have government to kind of manage them, and you're intrinsically interested in making sure the government is good, right? But if you can float around anywhere in the world, why do you care, right? So the countries, the institutions such as the villages, the judiciary, even I talk about the marriages, right? When you can float around, which is also the outcome of agriculture society. We're going to become what I call we free again, but we are going to become hunter gatherers, and our tools rather than a rock and a spear is a keyboard and laptop now, and you can be anywhere you want. And this will lead to many of these institutions becoming weak. And we're already seeing this. What is happening is the lot of, I think, a lot of people moving back to smaller cities in US, San Francisco, New York. People are migrating, which is weakening the positions of these big cities their taxes are going down, right? Tax income that they're going down, and which permanently changes them. In India, the same thing will happen. People will move to a smaller city. Why work from Bangalore in traffic when you can live in Goa, right? And work from there? And you build up your families there and build up your network or friend network there. The people taking in US, the retirement income and living in Bali and working from there. The companies are getting disassembled, I would say. And, the company like Buffer.io and other, everybody's fully remote, right? They can hire from anywhere in the world. So I think it's a fascinating impact across the world, not just India. I think in India, I think will just massively open up opportunities in the global market, and it makes the opportunities available to everyone who is not in big cities, even sitting in the small cities. So very democratic participation in the global economy, as I call, thanks to Geo also, internet access, and that's just really great for the country. Really great for the country. Country doesn't have infrastructure, but the country has smart people.
Absolutely. So there's going to be, I think, a big change in the organizational structure and the culture of companies going forward. I know we're running out of time. We have lots of questions. So I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And I'm in Jan 2019, when Knowlarity was successful, profitable, you made a decision to move back to the startup space with Basis Vectors and in the US. Why not continue your journey in India? Like, what stemmed this transition?
I mean, the Basis Vector, the backend is still in India, and so there's still India connection. The logic of Basis Vector is I learned a lot of things in building up a SaaS company in India, and when things became a little boring for me in Knowlarity, in the sense that you basically just kind of quarter by quarter running the business. My question in my mind was, how do I apply these learnings in a larger number of companies, right? Not just kind of one company. There's a way. Building a SaaS business is what I call, it's not an art, it's a science now. There's a specific way of doing things, and India offers very high quality capabilities at a very low cost to the world. My question in my mind was, where can I apply these learning and this network best? And to me, that looked like US and Canadian companies where I can apply these learnings. They're small companies, and there are a lot of founders in US and Canada who are who somewhat struggling. They build up a profitable SaaS businesses, but they are not able to grow the business to the next level. And that expertise I have, and I can bring that expertise and resources to them. So that is the logic for basic vectors. We intend to, and the way we apply that, and get benefited by that is that we buy companies. We intend to buy 15 companies in next 3 years, and help improve the growth rates of all those companies. It's somewhat stagnant companies. And the process, the founders make money with us, and then of course our investors make money. And we take the holding company public. All the infrastructure, the companies that we get involved with, all of them are American companies. So US makes sense. And I wanted to come and live in New York for some time. So I'm in New York.
Can't blame you for that, I'm sure. So, I obviously I have a lot of questions, but unfortunately, so does our audience. So I'm going to ask Ashay to please, there you are, hi. And if you could pick the question and unmute our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambarish, for this extremely insightful talk. Before we started, I told you I've moved back to India after 10 years. So a lot of processing and a lot of ways to think about it. One thing that really stuck with me was a sell first, build up later. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, including me, when I invented a bottle and when I was in college, a dual compartment bottle, I was theorizing way more than I was actually selling. And proof of concept angle, I think that if anything anyone would take away from today, that is a great point. The first question, you spoke about Goa. The first question comes from Mr. Yatish Dempo, who's a director at Dempo Engineering and Shipbuilding from Goa. So, Mr. Dempo, please ask your question.
Mr. Gupta, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Gupta, my question is, what is your key mantra for success for entrepreneurs? What is your I want short answer. What is your key mantra for success for new entrepreneurs?
I wish I could give a mantra, really. The Venkatesh, the entrepreneurship, any business that you start, it is not going to be anything quick. It is going to take very long time. Right? You may get lucky, right, and somebody buys you in 2 years, right, for $100 million. But I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about being lucky as a plan. No, I'm talking about being deliberate and as a plan. If it is going to take a long time, it's very important that you have energy, emotional energy, and physical energy and mental energy to survive that long period of time of struggle. Right? And that can only come if you are, if you deeply believe in the idea of execution, not the outcome, but idea of execution. And all your support network, your family, your friends, they're supportive of it. So there is quite a bit of kind of background work you have to do before you start on this journey. The I think I briefly kind of talked about the perseverance comes from the fact that you have thought through it before you got started, right? And you're willing to fail and not regret it. Right? The and still feel like you were successful, right? And that is just very counterintuitive thing to kind of imagine, but you need to be in that state of mind. I think your state of mind should be, okay, everybody I care about, they're aligned with this. I am intellectually aligned to waste 3 years of my life on trying to do this. Even in 3 years, most likely it will not work. Given 90% of startup fail, right? More than 90% startup fails. If I end up being the regular thing, which is it fails, I will not regret it. I would still admire, enjoy the experience that I went through. If it's successful, it's great, but likely it will not be successful. I'll be okay with it. I actually would enjoy it. I would rather do this than anything else, because if I did not do it, I would all my life regret that I did not give it a try, right? And I would be bitter in my mind. When you are in that mindset, you will persevere, right, for 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, whatever time you want to kind of give yourself before calling it quits. And I think if you do that, the chances of success are much, much higher, because you're not anxious, you're not worried, you're just giving it a very, very good try, right? And you do it every 3 years. You reach certain stage, then again you think about it. Okay, do I want to give another 3 years? I have a choice to quit it. I have a choice to kind of continue. And once you are in your mind and your people that you care about, you basically all say, okay, let's give another 3 years. If I don't give it a try, I probably feel very bad. Again, regret it in my life. My life is limited. Everybody dies, right? And especially professional life is even shorter, right? When you're 30-year-old, right, you have 15 years of useful, 20 years of useful professional life left, right? When you're 20, you're 25, 30 years. So it's a very short period of time, and you're just literally making a bite-sized decision very rationally. And you give it a try. The only thing you can control is trying. You can't control the outcome. So you just right in the beginning be comfortable with the whatever outcome it will be, and assume that outcome is going to be bad, which is actually statistically likely the case, right? So just be comfortable. Just be comfortable.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for that, Ambarish. The next question comes from Aditya Chittor, who has a very pertinent question that even I had thought about before I moved back. So Aditya, go ahead.
Hey everybody. I'm Aditya Chittor, speaking from Fremont, California. Physically present in Fremont, but mentally have been present in Hyderabad since a year because I'm trying to move back. And with that perspective, I go in with my question. What are some of the opportunities to take advantage of in the US that you're likely going to miss after moving to India, especially from the perspective of professional growth?
I mean, I have to kind of know your background to comment on that. I mean, the India is going through amazing transformation, and there are amazing opportunities. I would say, if somebody is an Indian, probably it's a little bit easier to start a company in India today than it is, I would say, in the Valley. I think what is happening in India is that you get dollar funding and you have rupee cost, so you can fail more number of times before you run out of money. The companies don't shut down because the idea doesn't work. Companies shut down because they don't have money left to try again. So I think you can try like 3 times, 4 times something, and even if you are a mediocre entrepreneur, the chances of success will be higher. There might be a chance of success, versus in US, you probably have like one shot with the money. So I think that way it is a really great situation to be in India, and also you're sitting, you can just go hide in your house, right? Reduce your cost even further, and then you can keep trying. So So I think from that point of view, it's a great situation. I think the opportunity that you miss out is um, in US is the, the things move. I think the funding and everything moves faster. If you're trying to access US market, so sitting in US, you're accessing US market. Indian customer, whether it be consumers or businesses, they're notoriously difficult to, have them have them pay you. And when they pay you, they pay in rupee, which is end up being 1/4, 1/5 of in the US. So when you're trying to build up a business, the business has a top line and bottom line. And in the top line, if it's 1/4, then what it is in US, which is one, right? That is the impact that you end up getting. So you can try longer, you survive longer, but you get paid very little. Versus US, you get paid more. So I think that's an opportunity, the sales opportunity, customer access opportunity. I think in terms of new trends, US is very advanced. I think India, what I call, is an opportunity where you are using existing technology and applying those technology in solving real world problems, which are very standard problems that are getting solved. So India is solving this own very standard issues. What I call India is a land of problems, which is translated to land of opportunity. Right? You never dearth of problem. You look around, everything is an opportunity, right? In US, people have already solved a lot of problems. So you kind of have to justify why what you're doing is superior to the existing solution, which is already many times pretty good. But at the same time, you're applying cutting edge technology to improve the solutions that already exist. In India, you don't need cutting edge technology. You basically, you do basic things like, look at the big innovation in India, which is, I want to move from point A to point B, right? I want to fly, book a ticket, I want to buy something, I want to get kids educated. Just very, very basic things are getting solved. So I think that's a difference. If you want to do cutting edge technology, incrementally improving particular solution, accessing global market, getting paid a lot more for your customers, but having higher risk of failure, right? I think probably US. The India is I call it India is a lower risk entrepreneurship. The risk is a little bit lower, but reward is lower as well.
Absolutely. That really resonates with me as well. For the past 2 years after my MBA with Tepper, I've been working with Deloitte Consulting, picked up a number of skills with respect to selling, and looking like I'll be finding some opportunities shortly to move to India. And I hope to stay connected with you and everybody in the CMU network as I make that move.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Aditya. Aditya has been talking to me a lot about moving back, like I did. So hopefully this. I think
everybody who's moving back to India, I think the opportunity you should focus on. I always look at like what is that I have that I want to minimize the competition in whatever I do. So I basically would go for opportunities which only I can do, or there are very small number of people can do who are similar to me. And then anybody else. So when you think strategically about opportunities, you're moving back from US back to India, which is a smaller set of people versus the Indians, right, or Americans. So you basically look at India-US bridge opportunities only, which only you can execute. And when the competition goes down, right, your risk of failure goes down as well, right? And you have less people trying to compete. I have this thesis that you should never go for the best opportunity and never go for worse. You go for the middle, because the best opportunity, everybody, there's a hunger game going on there, right? Everybody wants that big pile of gold, right? Even if you're like the amazing guy, if you're number 2, then you get kicked, then you get shot, right, on the way to the gold. So avoid like big pile of gold. Everybody is just going there and killing each other. And a small pile of gold, you don't go there because, well, it will not feed you. Go to the gold, which is kind of medium size, that maybe is kind of hidden in some like not people are not going their place, and you go there, always people overestimate their competence. So whatever you think of yourself, just kind of notch it down by like 2. You're not as good. And that is, I always believe, I always believe that, I am not as competent as many people are in the world. And I probably have inflated sense of my own competence. So, I basically, just notch it down a little bit and go for a pile of gold, which is strategically, maybe there'll not be very large number of people trying to get.
Awesome. That's great advice, Amrish. You promised to be provocative and everything, and I think you're delivering on it.
Well, this is true. This is a reality, right? Why would you go and fight in Olympics? If the purpose is to go have independence, why do people start entrepreneurship? Independence, fame, power, money. These are the kind of reasons that you want. It doesn't ever. If you want fame, then you go for fame. But if you want independence, power, and money, which independence end up being most of the people's big primary motivation. There are very low risk and high reward way of achieving it, right? And you have to think very rationally about it, and go pursue it.
Awesome. Next question is from Ronak Javeri. Ronak, before you ask a question, just introduce yourself, when you graduated and everything, and then ask your question.
Absolutely. Hi, Mr. Gupta. Thank you for having the session with us. My name is Ronak, and I graduated from TEPO. I did my undergrad in TEPO and graduated in 2017. And I also worked at McKinsey for a while after that in the Pittsburgh office. And then I moved back to India at the end of 2019. And since then, I've been on my own entrepreneurial journey. And one of the questions that I had for you is, how do you rebuild that network when you come to India? In the US, I had the advantage of the CMU and the McKinsey network. Coming to India, it was kind of starting from scratch. And, especially when trying to find co-founders, it's so important to find someone that you've worked with, but that's been difficult. So what advice would you have for that? And the second question I had was, when you are doing a startup, like you mentioned, you need to be ready to fail for 3 years. How do you disassociate your self-image from that failure, right? How do you stop considering yourself a failure and keep pushing through those mental barriers to believe that, okay, if I push, I will be successful? So what are those mental tools that you use to strengthen yourself in order to keep giving your best shot every day without letting that failure really affect you?
So let me take the first question, which is the network. For me, at least, building a network in India was very easy because college. I went to IIT Kanpur, and then there was like a bunch of folks there. Also, the McKinsey is very respected brand, and people will give you time. If you just reach out to people, don't underestimate the power of just contacting people on LinkedIn and saying, I want 15 minutes of your time on a Zoom call or something like that. You ask 5, 4 will ignore you, but 1 will talk with you. So you just reach out to 500. And then you have 100 people chatting with you, and then some of the conversation will come out. Be shameless. I think McKinsey, what ended up happening is once you are in McKinsey, you kind of have this the whole kind of chip on the shoulder that you're amazing, and you advise to Fortune 50 company CEOs, which is great. But no, when you come to entrepreneurship, nobody knows that you're amazing, and they don't care also actually. So you just have to kind of put it on the side, and you're just another struggling entrepreneur who is trying to get something out of people. So you just be ready to be rejected, I reached out to a whole bunch of people in the beginning, and when I was trying to build up the company, and a lot of people just didn't even talk with me, which is okay. I didn't even notice. I guess I have like the shamelessness embedded in me. But many of those people now tell me and now tell other people, oh, this guy reached out to me a long time ago. I knew that he was going to be doing great. So maybe what you can tell in your brain, anybody who's doesn't respond to you is that one day this guy will tell me, oh, he reached out to me and oh, I was busy, blah blah. Right? So I think reaching out to people just works. And you'll end up meeting some very, very nice people in the process. Also, it's good for them. You're doing them a favor because it's not one-way street. When you reach out to them, they might be looking for a co-founder. They might be looking to invest in your idea. They might be thinking the same way as you're thinking. They just have not done the work and reaching out to you. You reach out to them, so they should be thankful to you when you reach out to. So you do this favor to the universe and reach out to those people who might be thinking and wanting to help you and wanting to be part of your business. So that's how you should think about reaching out to people, and that will build the network. And what end up happening is once you talk with somebody, they will go and introduce more people to you. So it's a little bit, it's not linear, it's exponential. So you reach out to a bunch of people and you have a chat, and they reach out to more and they reach out to more, and then it just kind of starts building. So it's initial hiccup, it just kind of solves very quickly. Your second question, which was what do you tell yourself to make sure that you can continue to push forward? I'll tell you how I think about things. For me, when I was in McKinsey, I did not look this. I mean, I could get a little bit philosophical about this. What choice do you have? You don't have a choice. So you're born, and you went to school, and you had family, and you've got limited time, right? In life, and you ended up doing whatever you ended up doing. Many times you ended up doing because you listened to your family and friends, and you went to good college and you got married, blah blah, blah, a whole bunch of things that people do. And you took a great job, but suddenly you're one of the Sundays or long weekend, your conscience woke up and you said, how about you do what you feel like doing, right? And and you still had some bunch of courage left somewhere, right? So you kind of mustered it up and you combine these two and you say, I'm going to do entrepreneurship because that's what I wanted to do. Well, great. You owe it to yourself to do exactly what you feel like. You're not responsible to anybody's emotions, especially after you have done so many things already for other people. So, you owe it to yourself to do exactly what you feel like. That's it. End of story. And whether you fail or succeed is nobody's business. It's nobody's goddamn business. By the way, if you fail or succeed, nothing changes in the world. Also, you're tiny. We are sitting in we are irrelevant in the tiny universe. So, you're not going to, you owe it only to yourself. This is how God designed us, and great thing that you had this realization. So I don't know what failure is. You tried, that's success. And you don't have a choice. The other choice is forever be in pain, doing not what you wanted to do, but doing what other wanted you to do. So what choice do you have? You should just be thankful that you come to this realization that finally you're doing what you want to do. And that's it. There's only one-way street.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So maybe we'll do, Grishma, I want to do one more question, or a couple of more questions, and then go for closing comments. Sure. So next question is from Sanjay. Sanjay, go ahead and please ask your question. You can unmute yourself. Hi, Sanjay, you've unmuted it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question, I am a high school alum like you, and then I went to Cambridge. So the two things I did, and then I came back.
Sanjay, your voice is very, very faint.
Maybe he can type something. I can answer the question.
Yeah, Sanjay, you want to type your question to everyone on the chat? And I mean, you already typed
Can
it.
you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So basically, I was saying, Ambarish, basically I'm from IIT Kanpur as well. Graduated about 14 years before you, and then I went to the US at CMU, and then I worked there to 2002 and moved back to India in 2002 with my co-founder, who's also my wife and also an alum from IIT Kanpur. We both started this company called Max Secure Software, and we've been running it since then. And we've now pivoted from B2C to B2B. The question I had for you was basically, how easy is it to sell to the SMEs in the US if you don't have a brand, especially in the security space?
You're talking about software product, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's an endpoint security product.
I mean, see, it's not difficult. I mean, you take example of Freshworks and Zoho, they have just kind of built up hundreds of millions of dollars of business selling into US market. In case of security, maybe a little bit difficult, more difficult than, in other software products. And you can mitigate that by having maybe a channel partner or somebody, right, who represents your face in US market, but you still sell in inside sales through Zoom calls and everything, right, in the US market. Especially US customers, SMB customers, they have become progressively very comfortable with, buying things online. Actually, they prefer not to buy people from pushy sales people who kind of show up on the door. And thanks to COVID, nobody wants people to be showing up on the doors anyway. So I would say it's a very tried and tested story now of sitting in India and selling into US market. In case of security, I can understand a little bit, for you a little bit incrementally challenging, but you can mitigate that risk by having a US face, and that can be a partner representative or somebody who's physically here. But to be assured that that partner never will have to show up face to face for face to face conversation with the folks. I'm guessing this is when you talk with US SMB, this is less than $100,000 per year contract value. Is that correct?
Yes, probably slightly lower, maybe 50,000. For
it
50,000 depends on the size of the company. Yeah, but I think
so. Nobody expects for $50,000 per year contract, people to show up and in the office. So you should be able to do it.
All right. Okay. Sounds good. Thanks for your answer. I'll follow that up with as we are doing the move right now to the B2B space now.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sanjay. So I think, Grishma, if you want to invite Rekha for closing comments, unless you have a question or Rekha has a question, we can invite Rekha onto.
Yeah, Rekha.
So, Rekha, you want to turn on your?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Ambarish, for such a engaging session. I think it's been very interesting to hear about your entire journey. I think it's been a kind of, I think it's been like a very deep sharing, touching upon various different aspects, right? Some like bordering on both personal as well as professional, which has made it very real. And just, before I close, I think just one simple question I had is that, for a lot of our young alums who are moving back to India, and of course, I know that, India is a great place right now for entrepreneurship, but, what are the, 2 or 3 kind of, things, 2 or 3 points of advice that you would give them? Just kind of maybe like one-liners, which they could keep in their head, as they are embarking upon this journey. This is for our youngsters like Asha.
Yeah, no, I think everybody who is in this group, went to CMU, the just the mere act of going to this class basically makes you a privileged bunch of people, right? And I think everybody should take a moment to realize that they are extremely privileged, belong to 0.1% of the world, right? In the privilege that you have access to. Our sense of risk is highly magnified. There's very little risk. Whatever you do, you're never going to have problem, eating food, right? Survival never going to be an issue, right? And once you consider that, you should feel extremely comfortable in taking whatever risk you want to take. Right? You're just an amazing situation. It's a criminal not to do exactly what you feel like doing, because if not you, who else will, right? And if you don't do what you feel like doing, when you die and you go to heaven, right, the God will be very angry. He'll say, I gave you so many stuff, and still you didn't do what you wanted to do. I can understand other people having constraint, but you, my dear friend, I gave you everything. So you'll be very angry. You'll probably slap you a few times, right? So just avoid that. Do exactly what you feel like, because you really are very privileged. It's fascinating, really, the privilege that you have. And if you don't do, it will always bite you in your heart. You can lie to the world. You can't lie to yourself. It will bite you when you go to sleep, when you watch a movie, on the Sunday, when you're hanging out with your kids, when you see your friends, doing exactly what they feel like, you feel jealous. It will just forever bite you, pollute your heart. So you don't have a choice also. So just do exactly what you feel like. I think that would be advice. And second is, I think India and US India just has an amazing future. The way geopolitics is playing out, the US-China rivalry means that the US is going to get closer to India in the next 10 years. And we're already seeing it in various ways. India is a great democracy, similar system, a little bit underdeveloped institutions, but similar system as US. So I think this US-India bridge, which everybody here is just very ideally suited and belong to even a tiny minority of the privileged class who have access to. There are loads of opportunities that you can work on. So I think I would say that is like the area of expertise. I think third, I would say, which is I think highly somewhat pointed out, is that people, when they want to do entrepreneurship, they basically want to do a startup, because that's what everybody's doing. But I think people underestimate. There are a lot of choices available. So I think people need to kind of figure out what makes them happy. Do they want fame? Do they want to kind of everybody clap for them? Amazing guy. Do they want power? Power is direct people to do whatever they want to do, and everything is okay. These are all fair choices. People want money, sit quietly and count money, right? And just be safe, successful. They need to choose what they want among all three, because you can't have all three. It's very difficult to get all three. So let's say you are a guy who wants independence, and then fourth is independence, right? Let's say if you choose independence, maybe you should not do a regular consumer startup. Maybe you take, run a franchisee of a Salesforce in software service company, which is very low risk and still give you independence and money. If you want fame, right, then you should just form a big team and not worry about how much equity you have. You should not worry about power and money. You go tag yourself with somebody who's very successful, and that way your chance of success is high, and then you basically say, I'll do marketing for you. So your face is everywhere, right? And this guy is doing the work. If you want power, right, maybe don't do a startup, right? Go through the corporate India or America, where you get to tell people what to do. So choices are different depending on which one you want to maximize. And if you do that introspection now, your chances of success will go up versus basically blindly asking for everything.
That's wonderful, Ambarish. I think I really loved what you said, especially the last point. I think where you have to know yourself before you decide, before you embark on this journey. I think for each one to spend some time just introspecting, understanding what they really want, and then making the choices accordingly, I think is so important. Something which I don't think, at least I was not aware of, that self-aware growing up. I think I undertook that exercise much later, but I'm glad that the alums, the younger alums are at least getting this advice, earlier on. So thank you so much for this wonderful session. And thank you very much, Grishma and Ashay, for hosting and helping out. I'd just like to make one quick announcement, which is that our next event will be on June 17th with Vikram Sood.
Yeah, he's ex-chief of RAW, Research and Analysis Wing, India's Foreign Intelligence Agency. So Ambarish, if you would like to attend, we'll send you the invite. And
absolutely. Sounds like I didn't know that you were CMU alum, but it will be exciting to join.
Oh, so he's actually not a CMU alum, and so we invite people across the board, and that's been the beautiful thing about these speaker series events. So
sure, absolutely. Please invite. I'd love to join.
Great.
But thank you so much. We really, as both from a practical point of view, a work point of view, and also I think from a personal level, there's a lot of learnings that we've had today, and we thank you for a very insightful and provocative talk, as promised. So thank you so much for joining us today and speaking to all of us. We really appreciate it, and we'll definitely keep you in the loop of future events and keep sending you our invites for sure. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.